last week I said I would show you some of the pens and pencils that I use. It can be really confusing when you first start drawing with pen and pencil. There are just so many options available. But I would say to you, always choose artist or professional quality rather than student or budget quality. Not only will they last you longer, but you'll get better results. Now I keep my indoor sketching materials on a tray. I find it's really useful that I can just pick the tray up and move it around from room to room. One of the first things you're going to need is a sketch pad. Now this is the one that I use a lot. It's the W.H. Smith's A5 sketch pad. It's not too big and it's not too small. If you do want to go bigger, go for A4. But I think just to start with, it's nice to have a sketchbook where you can finish the picture fairly quickly. And a large piece of white paper can be very daunting when you first start drawing, but A5 is a very popular size. I would go for a ring binder type as well because they open flat. And you may be confused about the weight of paper. Now 135 GSM is a really good weight. This sketchbook's got lovely white cartridge paper in it, and it takes pen and pencil very nicely. Now the higher the paper weight, the higher the number of the paper weight, the thicker the paper and the better quality. So personally I wouldn't choose anything under 135 GSM. The other reason I like this is because in the back there is a thick piece of card, and that gives you a really good support if you're sitting with the sketchbook on your knee. So that would be my favourite choice of the first sketchbook. I'd also suggest you get a little pocket sketchbook. This is Hannah Mahooly, and it's a little tiny sketchbook, but it's great for popping into your pocket or your bag. When you're out, you may take pictures of things that inspire you or you want to paint or draw later. And so this is good that you can do a little quick sketch as well. You can put the direction of the light or some little details or some notes. Along with that, I would have a ballpoint pen. Now, some people don't think you can draw with ballpoint pen. It is a little bit tricky, but I find that the Papermate Flexi Grip Ultra is a really nice smooth pen. It's not blobby or scratchy, and it's never leaked in my bag, so I carry one of those for just my little quick sketches when I'm out. Next we're going to look at pencils. Now my favourite makes of pencil are Derwent and Faber-Castell. I would suggest you probably start with the Derwent. These are really nice pencils, and you can start with just 3 pencils. Let me line them up there so you can see them. Now, the Derwent Graphik is a really nice sketching pencil. Most people will probably use a 2B for their general sketching, but you should have a slightly harder pencil as well and a softer pencil. So HB is your standard hard black pencil. It has its uses, and I would always suggest that you have at least one HB pencil, but mainly for your drawing you're going to probably want to use a 2B pencil, which is softer and you can shade nicely with it. But I'd also suggest a 6B because it is a lot darker and you can get some really nice dark lines and some black shading with a 6B. So let's put those back down there. They're not too expensive and you can add to your collection. If I can pick this up, a little ruler's useful. This one's just got a straight edge and it's actually got a curved edge, which is quite nice. And then you're going to need something to sharpen your pencils with. Now most artists that I know use a knife to sharpen their pencils, but if you're young or have shaky hands or you're arthritic, that's not really a good idea. So I would choose something like this for your first pencil sharpener, the Faber-Castell. It's a nice one with opens up so you can travel with it easily if you want to. It's got 2 chambers to collect the shavings and 3 different size pencil. But you won't get the finest point with this type of pencil sharpener, so what people do is they get sanding blocks. You can get special ones for artists. I think they're quite expensive, but I just buy a sheet of fine sandpaper. This is 100, but you can get finer than that as well. And after I've sharpened my pencil, I'll just run the lead across here, run the graphite across until I have a nice really sharp point. And then we need to look at erasers. We've tried lots of different erasers. We find that a plastic eraser is quite good for graphite lines, just for rubbing out graphite lines. You get dust-free erasers. I prefer to use the latex-free ones. There's just so many makes, but a plastic one is a good starter. And something that's absolutely invaluable for graphite drawing is a putty rubber or a putty eraser. This is Faber-Castell, which is my personal favourite. It has this little plastic box to store it in, and so it won't dry out. Now they're like a soft rubber, and you can pull bits off of them. You mould it with your fingers, so if you've got warm fingers you can roll this into little like shapes, and this will lift out graphite penciled. You just dab it onto the paper and it will lift out graphite pencil, and it will give you a lighter shade or a highlight. So that is a very useful thing to have. And then we move on to the pens. Now with the pens, I'm going to show you 3 different types that I think are good to start with. And the first ones, these are Japanese pens, and we've got, let's turn them around, they are Uni-pin. Now they come in lots of different widths. There's an 01 here, which is a very fine, a 0.5 which is a sort of medium, and a brush pen. So Uni-pin are readily available, they're not too expensive, and those 3 would be a really good starter. All these pens I'm showing you, the ink is permanent when it's dry, so you can put a wash of paint over it later or some coloured ink. So that is the Uni-pin. The next one I'm going to show you is one that I use an awful lot, and these are my Faber-Castell Pitt pens, my artist pens. Now I'm showing you 4 here. The reason I would normally show you the S, which is the standard one, a medium and a brush pen, but I've added the XS here because this is a very, very fine pen. So I would suggest that you would either get the S, the M and the B, or the XS, the M and the B. If you can afford all 4, that's a really good set. Again, they come in lots of different widths and thicknesses, but for a starter they do make lovely pens. Now this is the other pen that I really like for drawing. It's called the Derwent Graphik Line Maker, but they have just improved this range. So this is the old packaging, you may still see it around, but they've called the pens now just the Derwent Line Maker, and they come in sets of 3 or sets of 6 or individually. Now I really like these pens as well, and they come in this nice little wallet. I think with the new ones, they've said they've improved the quality. I haven't actually been able to try one yet, but if you've got a choice between the Graphik or the new Line Maker, just get the Derwent Line Maker, because people were saying they're really good. So that's a nice little pack there as well. Now one other thing that you could get that is really useful when you're doing pen and ink drawings is a jelly roll pen in white. Now what this will do is it will give you a highlight on your ink picture, or if you make a mistake, a small mistake, you can use the jelly roll pen on top of it to cover it, but make sure your ink is perfectly dry, otherwise you'll get a grey splodge. And also again, if you want to go over something, make sure your jelly roll has dried. It does take a little while for the jelly roll to dry. So I would suggest to you, you get your sketchbooks, a ballpoint pen, good quality, 3 graphic pencils, and then I would say get 3 black pens. Get either the Uni-pin, the Pitt pens, or the Derwent Line Makers, and that will set you up to start with, and you can add to this collection as you go along. And I always, when anything new comes out, I just buy 1 pen or 1 pencil and see how I like it before I buy a whole set. Now there are so many lovely sketchbooks, and as you progress with your drawing you might want something a lot nicer to sketch in, it's a bit more fancy. This is an A6 and I just love this one. I must admit I don't really do anything really special with it, I just like the sketchbook. It's a Derwent one, it's got a little pocket to put your notes in, and I just do my patterns and practice shading in this book. and this is one that I did last year. So I've just got in here lots of funny little scribbles and patterns. It's not really a proper picture, it's just an ideas book for me. I do all sorts of silly little things when I get bored. And mainly patterns, as you can see. Lots and lots of patterns. So you can get lots of lovely things, but just start with the basics. And no, don't worry too much. Just look for the best quality you can and have fun.